CNN, BBC, France, 24. I'm watching you all.
From a small town in Burkina Faso to holding the fate of a nation in his hands, Ibrahim Traoré has become one of the youngest military leaders to lead a country in modern Africa. But how did the lands of West Africa, stretching across deserts, rivers and savannas, come to the point where a young captain could rise to power and command the destiny of millions? To truly understand the story of Ibrahim Traoré and the nation he governs, we must go back thousands of years to uncover the origins, empires, trade, and culture that shaped West Africa. Before we dive deep, make sure you subscribe to The Past Unearthed and hit the bell icon to never miss an exploration into history's most fascinating stories. Every corner of Africa tells a story, and this is one you cannot afford to miss. Long before the arrival of Europeans or the creation of modern borders, West Africa was a place of thriving civilizations and rich cultures. Human habitation in this region goes back tens of thousands of years, with archaeological discoveries along the Niger and Senegal rivers, revealing early settlements that practiced farming, fishing, and trade. These fertile river valleys allowed communities to grow, creating social structures, political organization, and economic systems that would lay the foundation for some of Africa's most remarkable empires. People learned to adapt to the challenging environment, utilizing resources, understanding seasonal patterns, and developing early technologies that allowed them to thrive. By around 300 AD, the first recognizable empire emerged in West Africa, the Ghana Empire. This empire, not to be confused with the modern nation of Ghana, stretched across what is today southeastern Mauritania and western Mali. Ghana controlled critical trade routes that connected the forests of West Africa to the Sahara Desert and North Africa beyond. Gold and salt became the empire's lifeblood, fueling wealth and attracting merchants from distant lands. Caravans crossed hundreds of miles of harsh desert to deliver goods, demonstrating the sophistication and ambition of the people who lived there. Ghana's rulers established political systems capable of managing trade, collecting taxes, and protecting their territory with well-trained armies. They ensured that the empire maintained stability while allowing commerce to flourish, setting a template for the empires that would follow. After the Ghana Empire declined around 1200 AD, the Mali Empire rose to prominence. Mali was vast, wealthy, and culturally rich, and under the rule of Mansa Musa, it reached heights of prosperity and fame that resonate even today. Mansa Musa's legendary pilgrimage to Mecca in 1324 displayed not only his personal wealth, but also the abundance of resources within Mali, and it established the empire as a power recognized across continents. Timbuktu, one of Mali's key cities, became a beacon of learning and culture. Scholars from across Africa and the Islamic world gathered there, building libraries and centers of education that preserved knowledge in mathematics, astronomy, medicine, and law. The empire's governance combined both local traditions and Islamic principles, balancing trade, justice, and religious authority. Mali's influence extended far beyond its borders, shaping trade networks and cultural exchanges throughout the region. As Mali's power waned, the Songhai Empire rose in the 15th century to become the largest empire in West Africa. Its heartland lay along the Niger River, with Gao as its capital. Songhai's rulers maintained an effective administration, extensive trade networks, and a formidable military. Cities like Djenne and Timbuktu flourished as cultural and economic centers, continuing the intellectual traditions of Mali while expanding commerce across West Africa. Despite its strength, Songhai faced challenges from both internal struggles and external threats. In 1591, Morocco, equipped with firearms and cannons, invaded Songhai, marking the end of the empire's dominance and signaling the beginning of European influence in the region. Even before European colonization, West Africa was far from isolated. trade connected its people to North Africa, the Middle East, and Europe. Goods, ideas, and culture flowed across vast distances, making West Africa an integral part of global economic and intellectual networks. This was a land of kings, warriors, scholars, and traders, and its history is a testament to resilience, innovation, and human ambition. The arrival of Europeans in the 15th century changed the trajectory of West Africa in ways both profound and tragic. Portuguese explorers were among the first to navigate the Atlantic coast, establishing trading posts and engaging in commerce. Initially, trade involved gold, ivory, and other natural resources. However, the transatlantic slave trade soon emerged, forcibly removing millions of Africans from their homelands to the Americas. This era brought unimaginable suffering, but it also demonstrated the ability of West African societies to adapt, survive, and maintain their cultural identity despite external pressures. Local kingdoms resisted in various ways, negotiating, rebelling, and protecting their people whenever possible. By the 19th century, European powers escalated their involvement in West Africa through what became known as the Scramble for Africa. France, Britain, and Portugal, among others, carved the continent into colonies with little regard for pre-existing boundaries, communities, or political systems. France established a vast territory called French West Africa, which included modern-day Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, Senegal, and Ivory Coast. Britain controlled Nigeria and Ghana, while Portugal maintained colonies in parts of Guinea and neighboring regions. Colonial rule brought roads, railways, ports, and administrative systems designed primarily to extract resources and control populations rather than to benefit local people. Forced labor, taxation, and suppression of local culture were common, yet communities found ways to resist, preserve traditions, and maintain social cohesion. The seeds of independence were planted during the colonial period. Throughout the late 19th and early 20th centuries, resistance movements, both small and large, fought against foreign control. Leaders, warriors, and common citizens participated in revolts, strikes, and negotiations, laying the groundwork for the nationalist movements that would emerge after World War II. The war itself shifted global perspectives on colonialism, as many Africans had served abroad and witnessed ideas of freedom, democracy, and self-determination. In the 1950s and 1960s, the wave of decolonization swept through West Africa. Ghana became the first sub-Saharan African country to achieve independence in 1957 under the leadership of Kwame Nkrumah. Burkina Faso, formerly Upper Volta, gained independence from France in 1960, followed closely by Nigeria, Senegal, Mali, Ivory Coast, Niger, and others. These countries faced immediate challenges: governing diverse populations, addressing economic disparities, and establishing legitimacy after decades of foreign rule. Colonial borders had often split ethnic groups or forced rival communities together, creating a delicate balancing act for newly formed governments. During this period, military leaders frequently stepped into political roles, sometimes through coups, sometimes through elections, to navigate instability and secure national interests. These patterns would shape West African politics for decades to come and set the stage for leaders like Ibrahim Traoré in the 21st century. His rise to power is not an isolated event, but part of a broader history of young, ambitious military officers influencing political outcomes in the region. While the centuries-long story of empires, trade, and colonization unfolded, West African societies maintained their cultural richness. Languages, religious practices, music, art, and oral traditions preserved knowledge and identity, even as borders shifted and new powers emerged. People adapted to change, finding ways to continue agriculture, commerce, and learning under challenging circumstances. The legacy of Mali, Songhai, and Ghana lives on, influencing contemporary West African societies and reminding us of a history marked by resilience, ingenuity, and global significance. As Ibrahim Traoré assumes leadership in Burkina Faso today, he does so in a land shaped by thousands of years of history, a land of empires and kingdoms, of resistance and adaptation, of knowledge and trade. Understanding this context allows us to appreciate not only his individual role, but the complex story of West Africa itself, a story of survival, power, and enduring identity. The journey from ancient settlements along the Niger River to the bustling streets of modern Ouagadougou demonstrates that history is never linear. Each empire, each colonial interaction, and each act of resistance contributes to the narrative that continues today. Ibrahim Traoré's leadership is both a continuation and a transformation of this history, reflecting the enduring significance of West Africa in the broader story of humanity. The story does not end here. To understand the full trajectory of West Africa's transformation, from colonization to independence, and the rise of modern nations, we must continue exploring the intricate patterns of power, culture, and resilience that define this remarkable region. In the next part, we will examine the colonial period in more detail, the road to independence, and how countries like Burkina Faso, Ghana, Nigeria, and Senegal navigated the turbulent waters of self-governance while maintaining their unique identities. When Ibrahim Traoré rose to power in Burkina Faso, he inherited a nation shaped by centuries of history, resilience, and struggle. Yet, to fully grasp his journey and the context in which he leads, we must delve into the colonial era, a period that redefined West Africa and laid the foundations for modern nation-states. The European scramble for Africa, beginning in the late 19th century, was not merely a geopolitical contest. It was an era that imposed foreign governance, economic exploitation, and cultural upheaval upon lands that had long maintained their own systems of authority and trade. France, Britain, and Portugal, among other powers, divided the continent into territories without considering the ethnic, cultural, or political realities that existed. The arbitrary borders drawn during this period would later present challenges to post-independence governance as nations struggled to integrate diverse communities under a centralized state system. In French West Africa, territories like modern-day Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, Senegal, and Ivory Coast were combined under a single administrative umbrella. France implemented a system designed to control resources, impose taxes, and extract labor, often disregarding the welfare of local populations. Infrastructure such as railways and ports were constructed primarily to facilitate resource extraction, connecting inland regions to coastal ports for shipment to Europe. Meanwhile, education and governance systems sought to instill French culture and values while limiting the growth of local leadership capable of challenging colonial authority. The British approach in colonies like Nigeria and Ghana was slightly different, relying more on indirect rule through local traditional authorities. This system preserved some local hierarchies, but still subordinated them to British colonial interests, ensuring that political and economic power ultimately rested with the European administrators. Across the region, the population faced forced labor, high taxation, and restrictions on movement, creating tensions that fueled resistance movements. Despite the oppressive nature of colonial rule, West African societies displayed remarkable resilience. Communities adapted to new economic and political realities while preserving cultural practices, languages, and social structures. Revolts, strikes, and organized resistance movements occurred throughout the 19th and early 20th centuries. These acts of defiance, though often suppressed, maintained a spirit of autonomy and set the stage for nationalist movements that would emerge after World War II. The global conflicts of the 20th century, particularly the two world wars, accelerated the push for independence. Many West Africans served in European armies, traveling abroad and encountering new ideas about freedom, equality, and governance. Exposure to these concepts inspired activists and leaders back home to demand self-determination and the end of colonial rule. The post-war era became a fertile ground for nationalist movements, political organization, and negotiations that eventually led to independence. Ghana became the first sub-Saharan African country to achieve independence in 1957 under Kwame Nkrumah, who emphasized Pan-Africanism and economic development. His leadership inspired neighboring territories to accelerate their struggles for sovereignty. By 1960, Burkina Faso, still known as Upper Volta, gained independence from France, embarking on a journey to define its national identity and governance systems. In the same year, Nigeria, Senegal, Mali, and Ivory Coast also achieved independence, with many other countries following in the early 1960s. These nations faced immediate challenges, integrating diverse ethnic groups, managing economies shaped by colonial exploitation, and establishing legitimacy in the eyes of their populations. During these formative years, military officers often emerged as central figures in politics. In several countries, coups occurred, sometimes justified as necessary to maintain stability, other times driven by ambition or ideological motives. These interventions were symptomatic of the tensions between colonial legacies, ethnic divisions, and the urgent need for governance structures capable of unifying diverse populations. Ibrahim Traoré's rise to power is a modern manifestation of this historical pattern, where military leaders become key actors in navigating political, security, and social challenges. The 1960s and 1970s also witnessed a broader wave of African unity and cooperation. Countries in West Africa began establishing regional organizations to promote trade, political dialogue, and security collaboration. The Economic Community of West African States, known as ECOWAS, emerged as a vital institution, reflecting the recognition that cooperation could strengthen economic growth and maintain peace in a region historically challenged by instability. These efforts, however, often faced hurdles as nascent governments struggled with internal political strife, economic dependency, and the lingering effects of colonial rule. Throughout this period, West Africa maintained its rich cultural heritage. Traditional music, oral histories, religious practices, and artistic expressions continued to thrive, despite the pressures of colonial education and governance. People found ways to sustain their communities, teach their children local knowledge, and preserve the wisdom of generations, ensuring that independence was not only a political achievement, but also a cultural renaissance. The political transitions during this era were complex. Leaders like Sékou Touré in Guinea, Léopold Sédar Senghor in Senegal, and Modibo Keïta in Mali demonstrated different approaches to governance, balancing modernization, socialism, and Pan-African ideals. Each nation experimented with systems that would reconcile traditional structures with modern statehood. Yet political instability, economic challenges, and external interference remained persistent obstacles. By the late 20th century, West Africa had seen a mix of civilian governments and military regimes. Coups were not uncommon, reflecting the ongoing struggle to consolidate power, ensure security, and manage economic resources. Despite these challenges, West African societies demonstrated resilience and innovation, continually adapting to internal and external pressures. The emergence of leaders like Ibrahim Traoré must be understood against this backdrop, where history, culture, and politics intertwine to shape opportunities and constraints for those in power. Ibrahim Traoré's story cannot be separated from the trajectory of Burkina Faso itself. The country, known as Upper Volta until 1984, underwent a series of political transformations following independence. Civilian governments alternated with military rule, each responding to internal tensions, economic crises, or security threats. These shifts reflect the broader narrative of West Africa, where the legacies of empires, colonialism, and nationalist movements continue to influence contemporary governance. While the political landscape evolved, West African economies remained heavily dependent on agriculture, mining, and trade. Cotton, gold, cocoa, and other commodities formed the backbone of many nations' exports. Economic dependency, combined with global market fluctuations, often challenged governments' ability to deliver stability and growth. Military leaders frequently positioned themselves as problem solvers, claiming to restore order and implement reforms, which is part of the context in which Traoré's leadership emerged. Social dynamics also played a critical role. West Africa is home to a multitude of ethnic groups, languages, and religious traditions. Balancing these identities within national frameworks has been a continuous challenge. Leaders have had to navigate tensions, encourage dialogue, and foster inclusion, while also addressing issues like education, healthcare, and infrastructure development. These dynamics continue to shape decision-making and influence political strategies across the region. The modern era has also brought new challenges, including terrorism, climate change, and international economic pressures. Countries like Burkina Faso face threats from extremist groups in the Sahel region, while also managing internal political stability. Ibrahim Traoré's leadership is thus situated at the intersection of historical legacy and contemporary complexity, requiring both strategic vision and responsiveness to immediate crises. Despite these obstacles, West Africa remains a region of incredible potential. Its youthful population, rich natural resources, cultural diversity, and historical legacy provide a foundation for growth and innovation. The story of Ibrahim Traoré, when viewed through the lens of West African history, becomes more than a tale of an individual leader. It is a reflection of centuries of resilience, adaptation, and transformation. As we continue to trace the path from ancient empires through colonial domination and independence, it becomes clear that the story of West Africa is ongoing. Each generation, each leader, and each community contributes to a complex tapestry of history. Ibrahim Traoré represents a new chapter, one in which the challenges of the past and the opportunities of the present converge. Understanding West Africa's journey from empires like Ghana, Mali, and Songhai through the upheavals of colonialism and independence allows us to contextualize the decisions and challenges facing modern leaders. It demonstrates how history shapes not only nations, but also the individuals who rise to guide them. By examining the legacy of trade, culture, resistance, and governance, we gain insight into the forces that have forged today's West Africa and the leadership of figures like Ibrahim Traoré. This story continues into the present, and in the next part, we will explore the current state of West Africa, focusing on the challenges, opportunities, and transformations shaping modern nations. We will delve deeper into Ibrahim Traoré's leadership, the security and economic environment of Burkina Faso, and the broader dynamics affecting countries across the region. The journey from past to present reveals a complex interplay of history, culture, and leadership, illustrating why West Africa remains one of the most fascinating and resilient regions in the world. Ibrahim Traoré's leadership in Burkina Faso is a contemporary reflection of centuries of West African history. At only 35 years old, he has become the face of a nation navigating complex political, social, and security challenges. His rise is rooted in the historical patterns of military leadership, which have often emerged in West Africa as mechanisms to address instability or to assert authority in moments of national uncertainty. Understanding his position requires a deeper look into the modern realities facing West Africa, the ongoing struggles within Burkina Faso, and the broader regional dynamics that influence governance and security. Before diving further, make sure you subscribe to The Past Unearthed to explore more stories where history, power, and culture intersect. Each video is a journey through time, revealing how the past continues to shape the present. Modern West Africa is composed of 16 sovereign nations, each with its own unique history, political system, and cultural fabric. ECOWAS, the Economic Community of West African States, functions as a regional organization aimed at promoting trade, peace, and political stability across the region. Despite these efforts, the area faces persistent challenges, including political instability, military coups, terrorism, and economic volatility. Burkina Faso, along with Mali and Niger, is particularly affected by extremist groups operating in the Sahel region, which threaten both security and development. Leaders like Ibrahim Traoré operate in this environment, balancing the immediate demands of national security with the long-term goals of governance and economic growth. Burkina Faso's path to stability is shaped by its colonial and post-independence experiences. After gaining independence from France in 1960, the nation faced frequent changes in leadership, alternating between civilian governments and military regimes. These shifts reflected the struggle to consolidate power, manage ethnic and cultural diversity, and address economic challenges inherited from colonial rule. The country's name change from Upper Volta to Burkina Faso in 1984, meaning Land of Upright People, symbolized a commitment to redefining national identity and governance. Ibrahim Traoré's leadership continues this narrative, navigating the balance between tradition, modernity, and the demands of a complex global environment. The challenges facing modern West Africa are multifaceted. Economically, many nations rely heavily on agriculture and extractive industries. Burkina Faso, for example, depends on gold exports and cotton production, yet fluctuating global prices and limited infrastructure present ongoing hurdles. Additionally, population growth, urbanization, and climate change place pressure on natural resources and public services. Social cohesion is another critical factor, as ethnic, linguistic, and religious diversity necessitates inclusive governance and careful management of potential conflicts. Leaders are required to be strategic, adaptable, and capable of fostering unity while implementing policies that stimulate economic development. Security is a paramount concern. The rise of extremist groups in the Sahel has forced governments to adopt military strategies alongside political reforms. Ibrahim Traoré, as a military leader, embodies the dual role of protector and policymaker, reflecting a broader West African pattern where military experience often intersects with political authority. The delicate balance between security operations, respect for civil governance, and the pursuit of development objectives is one of the defining challenges of leadership in this region. Despite these obstacles, West Africa demonstrates resilience and innovation. Youth populations are growing rapidly, offering potential for economic growth, technological advancement, and social transformation. Traditional cultures remain strong, preserving languages, music, art, and oral histories that provide both continuity and identity in a rapidly changing world. Trade networks, both within the continent and globally, continue to expand, allowing West Africa to leverage its resources, talent, and geographic position to foster development. The story of Ibrahim Traoré also illustrates the enduring influence of West Africa's past on contemporary governance. Military leaders stepping into political roles, navigating crises, and negotiating power structures are a recurring theme from the post-independence era. Yet modern challenges are more complex than in previous decades, encompassing global economic pressures, international diplomacy, technological change, and the demands of a highly connected population. Traoré's leadership is thus a case study in the intersection of history and modernity, demonstrating how centuries-old patterns of governance adapt to contemporary realities. Burkina Faso's cultural richness continues to play a critical role in national identity and cohesion. Local traditions, music, dance, and storytelling preserve the knowledge of past generations, serving as a bridge between history and the present. Educational initiatives aim to combine traditional wisdom with modern curricula, empowering young citizens to participate in national development while remaining grounded in their cultural heritage. These efforts illustrate the broader theme across West Africa, the integration of historical legacy with contemporary growth, creating nations capable of navigating both tradition and change. Ibrahim Traoré's leadership cannot be examined in isolation from regional dynamics. Neighboring countries, regional organizations, and international actors all influence Burkina Faso's political and economic landscape. Cooperation through ECOWAS, partnerships for security and trade, and interactions with global powers shape policy decisions and national strategies. Leaders must balance domestic priorities with regional and international expectations, a complex task that reflects the interconnected nature of today's West African states. The journey from ancient empires to modern nations highlights the adaptability and resilience of West Africa. Empires like Ghana, Mali, and Songhai established patterns of trade, governance, and culture that influenced generations. The colonial era imposed external control, yet local communities resisted and adapted, maintaining identity and cohesion. Independence brought sovereignty, but also complex challenges of nation-building. Modern leaders, including Ibrahim Traoré, operate within this historical context, navigating both continuity and change. West Africa's story is not merely about politics or economics. It is a narrative of human perseverance, creativity, and cultural richness. Trade networks connected distant regions, scholars in Timbuktu preserved and expanded knowledge, and communities resisted oppression while forging their own paths. Today, these legacies inform governance, social structure, and identity, demonstrating how history shapes not only nations, but the individuals who lead them. Ibrahim Traoré's rise symbolizes the ongoing narrative of West Africa, a narrative of young leaders assuming responsibility in challenging times, drawing on centuries of history while facing modern obstacles. His actions are influenced by the lessons of past empires, the experiences of colonial rule, the struggles for independence, and the realities of contemporary governance. This intersection of history and modernity illustrates the continuity of West African leadership traditions, adapted to meet the demands of the present. As Burkina Faso and other West African nations continue to develop, the importance of understanding historical context cannot be overstated. Governance, security, culture, and economy are deeply intertwined with the legacies of empires, colonialism, and post-independence challenges. Leaders like Traoré are both products and shapers of this complex history, tasked with navigating the needs of today while honoring the past. From Timbuktu's libraries to Ouagadougou's government offices, the story of West Africa unfolds as a testament to resilience, adaptation, and human ambition. Ibrahim Traoré's leadership is a modern chapter in this ongoing saga, reflecting both the potential and the challenges of a region that has endured, thrived, and transformed across millennia. His nation and the wider West African region stand at the intersection of history and possibility, reminding the world that understanding the past is essential to shaping a sustainable and prosperous future. For those fascinated by the journey of West Africa, from ancient empires to modern leadership, the story of Ibrahim Traoré and Burkina Faso offers a compelling window into how history, culture and politics converge. The lessons learned from centuries of resilience, adaptation and governance continue to inform decision-making, social cohesion and national identity. This is not merely a story of a single leader or a single nation. It is the story of a region whose past shapes its present and future. As we reflect on West Africa's history, the interplay of empires, colonial influence, independence movements, and modern governance demonstrates the complexity of leadership and nationhood. Ibrahim Traoré's role as a young military leader navigating these dynamics embodies the continuity of West African history, illustrating how the past informs present challenges and opportunities. His leadership is a reminder that the story of West Africa is ongoing, filled with lessons, struggles, and achievements that continue to define the region's trajectory. From ancient kingdoms to contemporary nations, from Timbuktu's scholarly pursuits to Ouagadougou's modern administration, West Africa exemplifies a land of resilience, culture and potential. Ibrahim Traoré stands as a symbol of this continuity and transformation, bridging centuries of history with the pressing realities of today. Understanding his leadership and the broader regional context illuminates the intricate web of history, power and culture that continues to shape West Africa, making it one of the most dynamic and historically rich regions in the world.